All right, if you see your face up here, if your name is Areej or Parth or Anna or Charles, come on up. So what I've asked this panel to do, what I do love about this panel, a lot of conferences, like we had Kevin O'Leary once, Kevin talks, leaves, and like half the room leaves. Our panel stays. You're staying, right? Don't know. Okay, good. Something to drink. But they're all going to want to talk to you. Like, all right, listen up. Maybe a couple people over here. Maybe Parth, you come over here. Just so you're not in the light. It is. Well, because we just don't have a lot of room, right? I could put a huge. I'll go get the. You can do the couch and. That's right. Your chairs. But here's the point. Irina, 1 second. Sorry, Matthew. I was in Riyadh. We did a conference with Roberto Calarese, World with Purpose, and it was a great experience for lots of reasons. And one was, it really shed more lights on what's happening in Saudi today. And I got to meet Areej and many other people. But we're going to ask her and then Parth to talk about what scares and then you all, but what scares and excites you about Saudi or the GCC today. And then we're going to go one more of an insight that you think we all should know that we don't about your regions. So, Areej, kick it off.
Thank you so much. Okay, it doesn't work. Is it working?
It should work. Keep it close to your mouth.
Is it no?
Keep it close.
It's not working. This one is working.
Yes, there we go.
Yes, okay. Hey, I'm Areej. Why?
Both work. Cool. And by the way, Areej is a fun fact, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I feel like she needs an introduction, but you can introduce yourself.
No, go ahead.
Well done. Well struck. Well, your father was the deputy finance minister. She has 6 sisters, 5 brothers, or something close to that.
Yes, I have 12 siblings.
And she was in Denver for 10 years, Techstars. So she sort of went back to a different country.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I grew up.
Women have a whole new role. So with that.
Cool. Okay. Now, are we talking about? I will talk about Saudi Arabia, but yes. I will introduce myself first. I'm Areej Alturki. I'm a founder of a company called Sea Capitals, and it's a financial company. We are distributors for capitals in Saudis. The smallest clients we have, their asset under management is $1 billion, and we are very proud of that. What we do many different things, but I will get back to what Mark said first. Yes, I'm coming from a big family, and I spent all of my life in Saudi. Then I moved here to the United States 10 years ago, and I met this cool guy, and I stayed for 10 years in Denver. Then I decided to move back to Saudi 2 years ago, and I recognize Saudi Arabia is becoming a very different country, and even for us as a local, we are seeing the huge transformations, and it's affecting us socially and economically in every aspect. The next generation doesn't gonna have the life I grew up with or my dad showed me or anything. It's very huge different. It's more like the US now in many different aspects. So many things I can talk about it when it comes to Saudi Arabia. They are moving, literally they're moving very, very fast in every aspect. And you need to have a very clarity about what you want to build in Saudi Arabia because the competition is very high. BlackRock is moving and they are leading the investment in Saudi Arabia. And a lot of big firms, they're doing the same things. There is opportunity for collaborations and in many different industries? Yes. However, there is so many people, like there is so many things people ask me about, is it real or not real? For example, I will talk about Neom. Neom is cutting a lot of, they're moving to Riyadh instead of sitting in Neom, and there is so many news about, is Neom really gonna happen as a project or not? I was in Neom last week, and I can tell you it's gonna be a great project. The only thing it couldn't, maybe it's not gonna be as Neom as it is now, which is the dream as 100%, but it could be 40% of what they're dreaming. And for us as a local, we are happy of that. If they just achieve 40% of what they promised us as a government, we will be in a good shape, I think. I can talk about a lot of things.
I know we're going to be in Riyadh twice later on this year, but what scares you?
From economic standpoint, nothing scared me, I will say, because there is so many opportunity and they're learning from their mistakes. What I learned about the government the last 3 years, they are learning from their mistake, and they come to us as a locals and they tell us we did this wrong and we need to re-collaborate and we need to do it right. And we really appreciate that. But what scared me culturally, because it's changing and we are family-based and community-based culture, and we don't want to miss that. We don't want to like shift very quick to be individualism, and we are going to this like we can see it in every aspect, and we are very like I'm very against that in 100%. I want it to be happy medium between the U.S. and our old culture. Yeah, that's I think like.
Can you top that, Parth?
No. So my primary focus is India. So I guess from my vantage point, what excites me is a whole host of favorable tailwinds right now, propelling India forward from what I believe is already a pretty compelling position to be in. It's the fastest growing major economy in the world, right? And, there's a lot of, you hear a lot about wealth creation in India, how much the ultra high net worth population is growing, which is all, well and good. But what's more interesting to me is the growing middle class, right? And the fact that there are hundreds of millions of people rising from the lower middle class into higher tiers within the middle class. The flip side of that, and really what scares me, is the demographic backdrop. A lot of people see that as another tailwind, and in my opinion, it's also scary when you have 750 million people under the age of 30, and something like 500 million, 600 million under the age of 25. Thinking about that in the context of what was discussed earlier with AI, it just makes you think, what is everyone going to do? And there are certainly concerns I have about.
You're one of the first to voice what I've been thinking. This is not good for India in that right. respect. All those call centers, all those low cost. You have to really. What's India going to do?
And not to mention, there also are rising living costs, and I am concerned about those financial pressures.
Yeah.
With that said, I'm also optimistic about the potential. Smartphones were an absolute game changer in India, and it is remarkable what they have enabled a lot of these folks I'm talking about who are now proudly in the middle class who weren't 20 years ago. It allowed India to basically leapfrog like an entire generation, and it remains to be seen, but I'm confident in the Indian population's ability to leverage some of these new technologies and artificial intelligence to hopefully create a solution to a problem that unfortunately I don't have a solution to.
So you mentioned leapfrogging. So Africa is leapfrogging. And so we actually have someone from one of our clients, Launch Africa. It's on their second fund. They're in 23, 24 countries. fintech and other aspects of leapfrogging that you're investing in. Maybe just what scares and excites you? Introduce yourself about Africa.
Sure. So hello, everybody. My name is Brittany McDonough. I am actually a Boston native, but I've been in the Middle East now full-time for 5 years and back and forth since 2014. So I started working with Launch Africa in 2022 when I was writing the government of Benin's innovation ecosystem development strategy as part of a World Bank project. And really, we were the only organization doing this work in 2022, and we are now the largest seed investor across the continent. We're moving into Fund 2, which is very exciting, and we just had a Harvard Business School case study written about us and the success of Fund 1, and really what the strategy of which Launch Africa approaches investing, but also what it's doing to the entire ecosystem. So one of our thoughts is we need to be a platform not just for startups, but also for investors to be able to have an access point onto the continent. So our barrier to entry is very... What scares me is the ability for folks to actually look at the opportunity in a realistic sense, but then the practicality of being able to scale as a startup, and the bubble that is happening in venture in the West is not necessarily hitting the continent in that space. What excites me is actually the Gulf being the largest investor into things like mining, infrastructure, pharma, and tech onto the continent, more so than the US or China. So I think the collaboration between Africa and the GCC is very interesting, and we're seeing levels of capital enter into markets that haven't really been there before.
Perfect. So, well, LATAM's not represented, but Mississippi is.
Yep.
But hold on, I'm going to get your slides. But why don't you talk about now, how's the U.S. CHIPS Act impacting geopolitics and flows of capital?
Well, let's say a couple main facts, right? 92% of all chips made that are 10 nanometer to 20 nanometer are made in Taiwan today. Oh, there you go, right? TSMC, baby. It is. So 10, right? And around 60% of anything between 50 nanometer to 200 nanometer is made between Taiwan and China, the mainland. So what does that tell us? That tells us that, and we proved this out during COVID-19, most countries are at risk now that in the event of not even a full-blown conflict, of a simple blockade, we will not have chips available for anything that we need to build, whether it's phones, or we're talking about AI. A very friendly reminder to all of you who are enthusiastic about it, AI runs on chips, right? So repeat that to me, everyone. AI runs on chips. Thank you. So that's the real point of this, right? So if we look at the geopolitics today, right now the US CHIPS Act was designed specifically to bring back manufacturing. Now, we want to talk about cause and effect regarding tariffs. One of the biggest reasons why the Trump administration initially tried to impose 100% tariffs on Taiwan had nothing to do with national security. And we talked about this actually internally with some of the US CHIPS folks. It was because of behavioral change. Many of the fabrication facilities that were developed under the Biden administration or funded, they were brought online in some cases or are about to be brought online, but they really didn't have much of a demand. So Lockheed Martin, Northrop, Dell, HP, all of these major firms said, yeah, we're still going to buy from Taiwan because it's still cheaper. The only way you get to a sustainable chip ecosystem in the United States is to bring down the cost, like what you guys are going to do, right? So the idea is,
So
yeah.
pass the mic over.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going.
Just curious, one more
Yes,
point?
yes, you
Thank
can.
you. So the point, just to bring it home, the point is, what we're saying here is that we need to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. in order to secure our national security future. If we don't, we are at significant risk. And Anna, you can help us with that.
Absolutely. He's exactly right. Onshoring is the trend of the year, and not only is it a trend because of tariffs, but it also makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. And next slide. Mm-hmm. Tate County is one of those reasons. It's centrally located. You can see in northwest Mississippi, 75% of the U.S. population is within a 20-hour drive. So if
Wait,
you're,
that's a long drive, though.
It's not for a trucker who's taking
Okay.
your chips and sending
Oh,
it from
sorry.
Tate County over to
Oh,
Austin, over to
fair enough.
Silicon Valley. Then it becomes
enough.
really doable.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So we're 35 miles south of Memphis, Class 1 BNSF served. We have several Grenada rail line sites in Tate County. We're a foreign trade zone, and you can duty deferral or elimination of importing, manufacturing, and re-exporting taxes. Manufacturing, distribution, assembly operations with global supply chains are all why it makes a lot of sense. We're also, this was in the OBA, the Opportunity Zone designation. So long-term investors can defer and reduce capital gains taxes, and these tracts cover both industrial and mixed-use land. So you can do a lot with development there.
Oops. Okay.
So one of the things that I want to point out about Tate County and the rest of the country is that the grid is suffering, and one of the things, so we know this is a challenge. One of the things we're doing to address this is we are incentivizing the use of microgrids, hydrogen, electric grids, solar power. We are incentivizing that. So normally you get a percentage of tax abatement, but we are incentivizing 100% tax abatement for any regenerative development companies that come into Tate County. So basically Tate County not only offers tax incentives, but also offers a blank canvas for next generation energy infrastructure, and ideal for firms looking for profitability with a purpose.
All right. So we've had Saudi, India, Africa, U.S. chips, Taiwan, let's just say issues, and now Texas versus, well, you didn't really talk about Texas, but Mississippi.
Texas has their own grid, which when it goes down, we don't.
There you go. All right. So maybe an insight that we should know, what no one knows about on your regions.
I like when she talked about the relationship between Africa and the investment coming from the Gulf to Africa. I was working with the Ministry of Energy, and they have been doing so much investment in Africa. What they do, they try to look at each countries, and they look at non-oil projects related to the government itself in each country in Africa, and they do the whole investment from A to Z, owned by Saudis, but partnership with the government itself. And I think it was a huge, not a lot of people talk about it, especially they're focusing on non-oil project in Africa itself, and they are cooperating with a lot of big companies in the US, as well as another insight I heard last 2 weeks about the cooperation between Google iCloud and Saudi. They're doing so much in AI, especially storaging data, because the weather in the Middle East, it's just fit, and they have the energy. They can do so much things there, and this is why this is a huge opportunity and collaboration between the US and Saudi.
So Parth has notes. Let's. I love it when a next gen uses a yellow pad too.
Old school, baby.
I like that.
Sorry, yes, I did jot down a couple stats that I wanted to share. For those of you, I don't know how much experience people in the room have necessarily investing in Indian equities. If you haven't looked at the space, it's interesting and certainly worth exploring. I don't have a fund or strategy that invests in that, but I would highly recommend looking into it nonetheless. The market structure has changed drastically, and just to put kind of things into perspective, a lot of money has been redirected from gold, physical assets into the listed equity space. In 2014, there were 23 million DMAT accounts, which are basically brokerage accounts. Now there are about 200 million. Okay, so there's really been a retail investor revolution there. And market structure-wise, now retail investors represent 50% of the dollars or the
Actually,
rupees in
just to
markets
go
there.
off that, that's what your company exists for, right? You're trying to democratize access to the markets.
Right.
In Saudi. Because what are those percentages in Saudi?
It's similar, but to be honest, when I looked at the Indian market, I have an office in Hyderabad in India.
Of course you do.
And it is amazing, but they have a volume because the population is very
Right.
huge in India, and the retail in India is amazing. It depends on if you are a fund, structure your fund in India and let the Indian invest. This is a smart model to do, or invest in many different funds. And as a US investing, I see a lot of investment coming from the US and investing in many different funds in India, but they make Indian leads because it's at the end of the day, it's about the volume and the retail. It's
Gotcha.
not just about that.
All right, you got 2 pages of notes? Or what?
No, sorry. Last thing I'll say
one
is
last
that
thing.
even though, so liquidity's improved dramatically in the equity markets in India, that said, there still exists a lot of opportunity to generate alpha in the public equity markets there. Again, super interesting, worth looking into, and feel free to reach out if you want to talk further on it.
And
Thanks.
just add one thing, if you don't mind. The difference between the Indian market and the Saudi market when it's come to brokerage and fund distributions is I'm focusing on B2B in Saudis because the money in Saudi in the government and the private investment. We have a small client, like we have just 87 clients, but each clients, they're huge. Their asset under management, you are talking about 270 billions. And the smallest is 1 billion. And you were like talking about, yes, small numbers of clients, but the asset under a huge volume. And in India, you're talking about the opposite. The retails and the volume of the clients is very big. And this is why we are trying to do a lot of big deals between the Saudis and the Indians and the US as well.
But when I was in Dubai, does this work? When I was in Dubai and Riyadh, I asked, what truly, this is a provocative question, what are you really innovating? Show me core innovation out of the region. And the answer was, you remember the answer?
I don't need to, this is the answer you're looking or other one. I don't know. Okay. I always say I don't need to create another Uber because we still need a first Uber in the region, if that makes sense. There is still a lot of growing the region. There is a lot of competitions in the US. You need to be very unique to have something. And to be honest, the US is very privileged to the point you need to create things. Like, for example, now we are talking about the dating and or the app. Yeah, the app you're doing. We don't have all of these things because we don't have this kind of problem.
Most of you are sober.
Yeah. We are super by nature. We are super by nature. Yeah, exactly the same concept.
But we're gonna. I know. I know. But yes and no. But the answer was government. The governments are very innovative. But we've talked too much about Saudi for a second. All right, here we go. Last thoughts on like insight that we don't know about Africa. When Taiwan's going to go down, and
so I think the opportunity for Africa, and that's unique, is talent and what is happening within the continent independently. So UM60 is the university in Morocco. They have committed to training over 100,000 AI engineers on their own dime. That's being overseen by the Digital Data Design Institute at HBS. So there's a huge number of youth. And one example of success in this field is Andela, which is a global organization that drives engineering talent. It's more difficult to get through the Andela program and work inside of Kenya than it is to get into MIT Sloan. Their acceptance rate is like 1.3 or something, like it's insanely low. So I would say talent, and then this kind of integrated mining component. I think this is where Africa is going to see a ton of upside.
Yeah, so I think one of the things with Taiwan that is exacerbated, I think this has hit the GCC in particular actually, is technology sovereignty. So you mentioned Google Cloud. Google actually had a region base in Qatar. They actually had a server room in Qatar before they built one in Saudi as well. The reason they built one in Saudi is because the Minister of Defense of Saudi Arabia basically said, we cannot have our data going to Qatar as a point of reference, right? They just couldn't do it. So I think the thing that I want to leave you with is technology investing is no longer, especially in the deep tech space, and this across all verticals, but especially in the semis and quantum, it is no longer a question of simply investing. It is a national security priority. And everybody is walking away from today's meeting, I hope, with an understanding that in every country in Europe, every country in North America, every country in Asia, and even in the GCC, they are looking at these technologies and saying, these are a matter of survival. If we do not invest, if we do not own, or even more importantly, have privileged access, right? I mean, even in the GCC right now, you cannot just give out or say, we're going to license you technology. They're saying, we want to either own it, or we want to hold it, or we want to actually have it in country. So that's really the major message here.
How does Mississippi fit in all this?
So one of the surprising things about Mississippi is our neighbors in Tate County. So we have Amazon Web Services, we have Grok AI. It's no longer just Silicon Valley and Austin. It's the digital delta now.
You're going to take us there. We're going to head to your region, right?
We hope to host a 361 investment conference in Mississippi coming up soon.
3 counties or 2 counties?
We hope to do 4 counties.
Ready. Well, I don't know what time it is, but I think it's right on time, 3:01. Oh, questions from the back. Oh.
I just had one question, and this all feeds off of what made at one time, that's chips. The word chips for electricity. So I wonder if maybe some of the emerging markets people can talk about the reliability of the grid and what they see.
Well, tell them what you used to be the president of AES for which countries?
Brazil and then Global Ec in Africa. So my real question is, if you can't get the grid to run, how's all this AI going to work?
I love your question. If I could just, right, so this is a brilliant question. So the issue is not actually the data centers. So the data centers are going up, and yes, the data centers have X capacity and power. The question is actually what's going in the data centers. So the servers themselves are the ones that are actually eating up the electricity, right? So the question is, are we actually putting in the most efficient servers to power AI functions? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. NVIDIA, in terms of, even with its CUDA platform, 30% efficiency in terms of running AI functions, even on the newest H100s. So I can tell you that there are new disruptive technologies that should be implemented into the data centers to do this.
Okay.
But the question really is the grid stable enough?
No, absolutely not. GE Vernova has a backlog of 5 years on LM6000 turbines and TM2500 turbines. They do not have enough power to power all the data centers that we have in America right now.
Well, look, I want to point out that we have breakouts to talk about these subjects. We got like a load of questions, but let's keep it going because I want to be respectful of the next panel, and then we will be in different parts of this property talking about these issues. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Come join our 361 Firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.